So much difficulty the Pandavas had to bear. They have come back. Now they don't want the Hastinapur kingdom. They don't want the Indraprasth they duly deserve. They don't want anything. They just were very, very happy to settle for only 5 villages because they were Kshatriyas by nature. They had to rule. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, went in front of him, with his proposal, begging for only 5 villages. But he would not spare the Pandavas even 5 villages. He was the greatest snake. Envy, personified. That's Duryodhan. I'll tell you, I just finished reading Mahabharata, and this was very, very fascinating to see. Now, Bhima has smashed Duryodhan. He smashed him, he's broken his thighs, he's lying on the ground, resting on his elbow. He can't even move an inch now. And Krishna, many devotees were present when the final bout between Duryodhan and Bhima did not happen in the Kurukshetra battlefield. They went to a separate place. A nice place was chosen and they had their battle there. And then finally how Bhima smashed him. He was a very powerful opponent. Nevertheless, Bhima came out to be more powerful. So Bhima smashed him and his thighs are now broken. He is on the ground, leaning on one side on his elbow. Krishna comes in front of him and tries to preach him. Speak to him some nice words because now he's going to leave his body eventually. What he says to Krishna? He says, I don't want to hear, from you. You always tried to side with the Pandavas. You were never fair towards us ever. This is the special thing about Krishna. He favors his devotees. Like in this verse, Prabhupada says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu. 9:4, that I envy no one, no I am a friend to anyone, but to my devotee I take special care. So of course Pandavas were devotees and Duryodhan was envious. Krishna will definitely favor the devotees. So he did not want to listen to Krishna and he said, okay, listen to this. This is what Duryodhan is saying in this dying state. He's saying, my friend Krishna, look at me. I'm going to die now and I am going to ascend to heaven. And look at what this Pandavas, especially your Yudhishthir, your Bhim, has to deal with. They have to go back, to Hastinapur, and they have to deal with so many innocent lives killed. It is said about 1.2 billion people died in the battle of Hastinapur, in the battle of Mahabharata. So he said, now they will be terrible. All these women will be crying and wailing because their fathers, their sons, their brothers, they are all finished, in this battle. And he has to deal with so much misery now. And how will he be happy having so many of his own loved ones being killed? Can he be peacefully, can he peacefully rule, the world now? No, he won't be peaceful. He is answerable to so much that has happened, answerable to so many women who are now widowed. Right? We know how, this verse is being spoken by Arjun. Sankaranara kaivaha kula gananam kulasya patanti hi pitrotesham lupta pindo the kokriya. In the first chapter, Arjun says this, that because so many women are now widowed, there will be unwanted progeny, and where there is unwanted progeny, there won't be periodical lupta pinda. After dying, there is proper rites performed for the departed souls. He said, because unwanted progeny means unresponsible children. So when society has unresponsible children, then there won't be, benefit for the forefathers, because the periodical lupta pinda, dako, kriya, those things will be performed. And what will happen? All the fathers and the forefathers of the progeny will glide towards hell. And Arjun says, I will have to take the sinful reaction for all this that is going to happen if so many men die on the battlefield. And so has happened. 2.2 billion people have died, and they are answerable. The Pandavas are answerable to that. So Duryodhana is saying, in his dying state, I will be enjoying ascending to heaven, and look at what the Pandavas have to deal now. So envy to the last minute, to the point of death. He said, I'm going to be happy now. He's smiling. I'm ascending to heaven, and they have to stay here and deal with so much misery. So you can see how envy, is there. So envy, as spoken in this verse in Srila Prabhupada's purport, is our inherent nature. The first reason we are put into this prison house in this place is because we were envious of Krishna. Because we were envious of Krishna in the first place, material world was created, and we were put here, to suffer the consequences of our enviousness, to play in this material world because we wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. Right? Naturally, Jivera Sarupa Hoy, Krishna Nitya Das, we are naturally eternal servants of Krishna, but forgetfulness, is there, and therefore all the living entities are trying to enjoy separately from Krishna. So Duryodhana's position, our position is not very different. Right? What is the most envious creature on the planet? A snake. Prabhupada said, the Vaishnavas, they said, any living entity killed, we don't rejoice. We don't want to kill even an ant. But it is said, a Vaishnava rejoices. Bhakti Siddhanta says, a Vaishnava rejoices when a snake is killed. Because snake is the most envious of creature. Why? You feed snake milk, it will bite the person feeding milk. A couple of years ago, there was this one guy in America. He's called the Snake Man. This guy has a big farm, and he farms for snakes. He has got all this wonderful variety of snakes, and he produces anti-venom. If someone is bitten by a snake, you have to inject them anti-venom so that he is cured. So this is the greatest snake guy on the planet, and he has a special snake in a nice glass case right in his bedroom. Now this is his favorite snake. So he takes special care of this special snake, and it's a poisonous snake. Gives him special food, special milk, personally takes care. Whereas there's some employees who look after the snakes, that's all over in his farmland. But this is his special snake. So 4-5 years he's been, looking after this snake. One fine day, he's trying to feed this snake. Boom! His favorite snake bites the greatest snake man, and he falls dead on the floor. So you may have a favorite, you may be, pampering this snake like anything, but a snake by nature is so envious, it will definitely bite you. So it is said, different creatures, like the snake, the main nature is enviousness. But human beings actually, in many ways, are worse than that. Right? We can see how the whole planet, everywhere, we can see things are happening, going wrong. There is always this chaos because someone is envying another. Right? Always this competition. We can always see that. A nation envies another nation. A person envies another person's success. Right? A neighbor envies another neighbor. A brother envies another brother, just like here in this case. Once my Guru Maharaj with Srila Prabhupada went to Japan, and we know the first Krishna book was printed by a company called Dai Nippon in Japan, and this is the first time when Krishna book is being printed. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Prabhupada and a few other devotees visited Japan, this company, and then they were negotiating They did it very smartly. My Guru Maharaj was very good with negotiating. That's why Prabhupada took him along with him. When things were done, one of the guys who dealt with them, Prabhupada got a minute with him when all the delegation went away. He said, "What is your goal of life?" Prabhupada took every opportunity to preach. So he said, "Why not?" So he asked this gentleman, Japanese gentleman, "What is your goal of life?" Then there was all this delegation who had come. They had all presented Prabhupada with their business cards. So there was a whole pile of business cards. So this guy who had left here to, write out the documents and fill in the forms, his card was right at the bottom because he's the bottommost guy at the moment. So when Prabhupada asked him, "What is your goal of life?" So he picked up the business card from the bottom and placed it on the top. So he meant that my goal of life to become the junior most staff here, to become the topmost person. So this is our nature. We are always in competition with another. And this is where, this is the function or the walk of envy. And yes, you can see it's everywhere. In politicians, they envy each other, they poison each other. Countries are envious. Even religions, they don't like each other, right? So many places, if there is a mosque and a church, they fight with each other. You make too much noise, things like that. People who are more educated, scientists, they try to always outdo each other. There's always this envious and competition. People's status, people try to become better, wealthier. In every way, you can see there is enviousness. So much so that we have history as evidence. So many people, there is so many cases you may have heard that people have killed someone because they were envious. I tell you a small story. It's a true story. It's not a story, it's a fact. Right, in India, some time ago, there were two families living next to each other, neighbors. And what happened, this woman, the next door neighbor had a beautiful young child, like 4 or 5 years old. And this lady, the next door lady did not have a child. So they were very good friends, they do things together. But from inside, this woman was very envious that the neighbor has a beautiful son, but she doesn't have a child. On top, on the face value, everything was looking very fine, but this woman, being very envious from inside of not having a child, and the neighbor enjoying, having a child, she hired, the hitman and got the child killed to come to equal par. This is just one incident, but there's so many incidents where out of envy, people go down so low, even to this, stage of killing an innocent child because they are envious of the neighbor's happiness. Because the neighbor's family is more happy than my family because in their family they have a wonderful child. So if I kill the child, then we will be all equal. My enviousness will be dissipated. So this is how low. So many other incidents where politicians or business partners, they kill each other, out of envy. So this world is no surprise in this world that you can see enviousness everywhere. And Prabhupada said what about envy? Prabhupada said in many places, you can read in Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita. My Guru Maharaj always said this. He said, Prabhupada's god brothers were envious of his success, isn't it? He mentioned a few names of his god brothers because they went. Did anyone try before Prabhupada going overseas, trying to spread Krishna consciousness? Yes, there was one such god brother of Prabhupada called Bon Maharaj who went to England to preach Krishna consciousness, but he came back unsuccessful, right? But when Prabhupada went, he became very successful, very, very successful, and definitely in India, his success, his god brothers could not take. They were very, very envious of him, so much so that they tried to poison his god brothers who came, the god Prabhupada's, disciples, when they were in India and they were preaching. They were very nice, they were very dedicated to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's god brothers, took them aside and tried to preach things like Srila Prabhupada's name. Prabhupada should not be used for A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He should be called A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, not A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So Prabhupada's god brothers were not happy with Prabhupada having that title. He said, that title, Prabhupada, belongs to our Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and that title should not be used by Prabhupada. He said, why does he use that title? But you tell me, Prabhupada, what he did, if there was any title more than Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami deserves even that title, doesn't he? He deserves the world's highest title. What to say of Prabhupada? Because what Prabhupada did, no Acharya can ever do. One of his disciples explains. He says, when Prabhupada at 26 Second Avenue in Newark, the initial days of ISKCON, taking its root in America, Achyutananda Swami, he recalls, he said, I challenge. What does Achyutananda say? He says, I challenge the demigods. He became a little emotional at one of the appearance days in Vrindavan, and he said, I challenge, Brahma, Indra, Chandra, all these demigods to come and do what Srila Prabhupada did. You come down to a place like America in the lower east side called the Bowery, where there are derelicts, acid heads, drug addicts, the lowest of the low, which roam around the streets in America. Prabhupada lived, among such low class people, being a Bengali gentleman, high class man, living amongst the lowest like us. He said, Indra, Chandra, Varuna, all these demigods will not last an hour with us. He said, but Prabhupada tolerated everything to propagate his Krishna consciousness mission. He said, we were the lowest of the low. He describes some of the things we used to do when Prabhupada was around. We were very low class, amongst these hippies. But he tolerated everything for the sake of Krishna consciousness. So no one could ever do what Prabhupada did. And if any title, the highest caliber that can be offered, that has to be offered to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So we can see they were envious and said he should not use that title. But as we know, as disciples and grand disciples of Prabhupada, he deserves the highest title. Because no Acharya in the line of disciplic succession did what Prabhupada could do. But it's only envy. What Sati is talking here, that Daksha, his heart is full of envy. And that's why he's not had a portion of oblations on the part of Lord Shiva. And she's very, very unhappy with his own father. So much so that she will quit her body. Right? She said, because this body has come to you, this is an insult to the highest level. And I don't want to keep even the body that has come from you. So she quits her body. So we can see how, this envy is everywhere in Daksha, in Dronacharya, in Gandhari, this great personality. What to say of common men like us? We always envious. We are always envious of someone. So this is the material world. And what is the nature of the spiritual world? What did Prabhupada say? That one thing that happens that transforms the material world into spiritual world is that when you become non-envious. The mood in the spiritual world is that no one is envious of anyone. What does the gopis do? What is happening in the spiritual world? Everyone is trying to glorify another. Everyone is trying to push the other towards Krishna. The gopis are trying to push the other gopi. Everyone is trying to push Radharani. Radharani is trying to push the other gopis. What are they trying to push? They are trying to push everyone else so that they become closer to Krishna. No one is saying that I will go close to Krishna. I am the important one. The mood in the spiritual world that everyone is thinking that I am not important, the other devotee is more important. And they are pushing the other devotee closer to Krishna. But what is the mood in the material world? With materialistic minded people like us, we are trying to pull the other person away from Krishna. And we are trying to push ourselves more, that I am better, I am a bigger devotee, I am a more learned one. So this is our mood. We are trying to push ourselves more towards Krishna. We are trying to push the other ones, behind us. So this is the mood in the material. As soon as this mood changes, this mood of pushing the other closer to Krishna, that mood is called the Vaikuntha mood. So in a community, in a temple, in a home, anywhere, if you imbibe this mood of pushing the other one, feeling yourself less important, as soon as you can do that, the whole atmosphere becomes spiritual. The whole mood is Vaikuntha mood. So it's very hard that you feel yourself unimportant. You feel very important and you try to make others feel less important. That's the nature. You want to be the big shot. You want to be the boss. So this is the nature of the materialistic person. So we can see Daksha is displaying this nature of enviousness. So yes, we can see Duryodhana and even Ravan. We can see Ravan displayed the same enmity towards Ram. What happened to him? He shouldn't have done it. His sister came and said that he glorified Ram and said how Ram has such a beautiful wife. Ram is so powerful that he finished Karen Dushan, right? And then Ravan came to check it out. He kidnapped Sita, did not take care of Ram. So many people, his own brother begged him, to give away with Sita. This is not going to be good for you. But, he was very, very envious by nature. If we can see throughout the Ramayana, the nature of Ravan is that he was very, very envious. Very, very envious. And now he is envious to Ram. So, we can see here in this verse where Prabhupada quotes that Krishna takes special care of his devotees, although he is impartial to everyone. So Krishna has many forms, and one of his form is, as Sirodakshaya Vishnu, he is Paramatma. So as Paramatma, he is sitting in everyone's heart. That part of Krishna, as Sirodakshaya Vishnu, in everyone's heart, is impartial to anyone. Like whatever you deserve, he gives you. He is not partial to anyone. And we can see, this example, when you work in a business, there is the boss, and the boss rewards you, awards you according to your hard work. So if you have good pious merits, you get blessed with good facilities in life. And if you are sinful, then you get sinful reaction. There is no question of partiality here. If someone is very good looking, someone is very wealthy, someone is very educated, he earned it. And Krishna as Paramatma is rewarding them according to their, according to the karma, according to what they have earned. So in that way one should not be envious as well, because Krishna is non-partial to anyone. But we know that that is not the end of it. The form of Krishna as Sirodakshai Vishnu, or the Paramatma form, is not all in all. The ultimate form of Krishna is Gopal. He's a person, and if someone is a person, he has a personality. So Krishna has a personality where, although in that form he is impartial to everyone, he doesn't envy anyone, he's not a good friend to anyone, but as Gopal Krishna, he is very favorably disposed to his devotees. That's why we can see Krishna is always with the Pandavas, right? The Mahabharata war, how did they win? If you see the Mahabharata, was there any chance of the Pandavas winning that war? Have you read the Mahabharata? Not even a single chance of them winning the war. Krishna fought the whole war. There's so many places we can see Krishna making them, glorifying the Pandavas. Putting the glory in the Pandavas because they were surrendered unto him. In front of, great fighters like Bhishma Dev, by Dronacharya, what was the Pandavas? Nothing. The day Bhishma Dev vowed that he would have killed the Pandavas, he certainly would have done it. There is no doubt. He was so powerful. The greatest fighter present on the battlefield was Bhishma Dev. It was not Arjun. And Arjun's guru, Dronacharya, he was as powerful. And he could have finished with one arrow all of them. But because of Krishna's presence, he dribbled the ball in such a way that they were always protected. So much so that when Krishna went out of the chariot, lifted the chariot wheel and attacked Bhishma, he promised that he will not lift a weapon, but he broke his promise. When his promise, if he is to keep his promise, he doesn't care. Krishna doesn't care of his own promise, because he has promised to his devotees, Name Bhakta Pranashati, that my devotee shall never perish. He wants to keep that promise. The promise that he has made to his devotee, that my devotee shall never perish. So when Bhishma was going to fire that arrow to Arjun, Krishna could not take it. He went down, lifted that chariot wheel and was attacking. So we know how Arjun begged him not to, right? But that day Arjun was finished, but Krishna was definitely going to kill Bhishma if he eventuated further. What else we could see in the Mahabharata? Krishna protected him. When we know how, when the war was over, final day, out of respect, Arjun said Krishna to, come down to the chariot first. But Krishna said, no, you go out first. So as we know, when Arjun stepped out, and then when Krishna stepped out, the chariot crumbled to pieces. Every piece of the chariot was held together because Krishna's lotus feet was on the chariot and he was holding the chariot together. Otherwise, we know how the Pandavas stood no chance on the battle. It's only because of Krishna anyone at any time can become glorious. So Krishna says that we can see, because devotees are non-envious, they are aspiring to be non-envious. They are surrendered to Krishna. So that's where you don't have to worry. You will always, don't be surprised, there will be so many enviousness thrown upon you while you are trying to advance in spiritual life. Our journey has just begun. You will see enviousness everywhere, even among devotees who are not so advanced in us. So do not worry. Only take the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. He will take care. He always protects his devotees. There is no doubt. And we have seen in the case of Pandavas, in the case of so many devotees who took shelter, his own father was envious of him. Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu. But he could not do anything to the little child because he was totally surrendered to Krishna. So if we keep hold to Krishna's lotus feet like, the wonderful devotees, we will always be in Krishna's protection. We will try our best to be non-envious. And the only way to get these qualities, they don't come from anywhere that one day you will become non-envious. It only comes through, what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? He says, with proper practice, right, and detachment, it's attainable. So, rigorous sadhana bhakti, chanting your rounds properly, in proper mood, in a proper way, listening to the sound vibration. This is the wonderful gift. Golokera prema dhana harinam sankirtana. So these wonderful qualities of becoming non-envious towards other doesn't come on its own accord. It comes by practicing, proper practicing. And what is this practice? The practice is properly chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then gradually chanting, your heart becomes purified. And when your heart gradually becomes purified, then you don't see any envy. You just want to push. You just see good in others. The highest devotee who feels he is the most fallen and sees everyone else, the Uttamadhikari devotee sees he is the most fallen, right? And everyone else is better than him. Even the person on the street, he feels that he is better than him. Everyone has made it, and he said, I've just remained here. I've got no chance. For Krishna consciousness. That's the heart of a pure devotee. And we are all aspiring to become that devotee. So let us all try our best to chant Hare Krishna and try to come to that platform that we are non-envious. Right? So we can see here, Daksha is very envious because he's got a puffed up position of being the Prajapati. He is very envious. He is envious of a very wrong person. We can see he is envious of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, we can see other demigods like Indra. Indra is very, he is very cunning. We can see Indra always trying to be curious about who is trying to become more powerful. He doesn't want his big asana to be gone. So he is always conspiring against other demigods, other sages, so they don't become very powerful. But you won't see anything in the personality of Lord Shiva. That's why Sati is pointing out, how can you be envious to the non-envious? How can you hate someone who has no haters? He doesn't hate anyone. So this is the condition. You sometimes hate people who don't hate you. Who don't hate you. This is our nature. We are, to be honest, worse than that snake. Okay? So, thank you very much. Anyone has any questions, any comments, any corrections if I have said too much? Anyone? Yes? Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shrimad Bhagavatam Purana ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.